Hey everybody, today I'd like to talk about how I prepare for a chamber music concert. When I was a student in Juilliard at the Yale School of Music, we usually had a whole semester to prepare 1 or 2 chamber music works. This involved weekly rehearsals and coachings, but today as a professional musician, I get invited to play with different musicians all the time, and we typically have 2 or 3 rehearsals before a concert, sometimes even only 1 rehearsal. Programs vary too, and in order to prepare, I and many of my colleagues listen to the piece on record. We listen with the score and practice with a recording of other players, so that when we arrive at the rehearsal, we can hit the ground running. Of course, tempi can change, and your partners may decide to take time in different spots than the recordings you practice. So you have to know what's going on in the score and be ready to be flexible. While I listen to a recording, I often mark cues in my cello part. If the violin has an upbeat, for example, or if the pianist has a fermata that is not written in my part, I have to be sure that I know what's there. Otherwise, my entrance might be too early or too late. We cellists often hold a long note while another instrument plays the melody. It is best to know the other part rather than just count. When I play with a recording, I use only one earphone so that I can hear the recording while I listen to my own playing. Practicing this way, you should find an interpretation or two that you love. And when you come to a difficult spot, stop the recording, practice your part, and then try again with a recording. This week, I'm preparing for a performance of the Dumky Trio by Dvorak. This trio has a huge cello part, so I thought to talk about it since all cellists should know this great piece. If you don't, go listen to it. My favorite recording is the old Beaux Trio recording, and I will add a link below. There is also a wonderful masterclass for the first movement given by Menachem Pressler, the pianist of the Beaux Trio. So I will talk about a few spots to help cellists. In the first movement, 8 bars before the allegro quasi doppio, which is the first double bar, we have a series of repeated notes or intervals. So here. So many ways of playing these, but the one way you should never do is play all the same. I like having a plan. Some people like to improvise on the spot, but I prefer writing down what I'm going to do, so I'm not confused suddenly when I come to play in front of a couple of hundred people or 1,000 people. Here I like to separate the bow because there is a sforzando on the second beat, the second quarter. And here I don't separate the bow, so that creates already a difference. Here I slide from the top, so using a guiding finger. Here I don't slide, so I cross strings. So again, the first slide from above, the second one no slide, and the last one I slide from below. Obviously, you don't have to do what I just did, but those are some techniques to change and vary your colors there. Professional musicians also mark difficult passages with an X on the side of the staff, so that when they practice, they can quickly find these passages that need the extra time and focus on them. One of these passages is at the allegro molto here. Or something like that. I obviously did not practice this yet. Let's keep in mind the character of the Dumky. I'll give you the definition. Dumky, the plural of Dumka, is a piece of Slavic music originating as a folk ballad. specifically a song or lament of captive people. When we come to the gorgeous andante moderato in the second movement, keep that in mind. So you can hear that sadness. And you can hear that it's a ballad, it's a folk melody also. Build your phrase with a vibrato as well as with a bow here. As you see, my vibrato has changed. It's not the same. You don't keep it the same throughout this phrase. So start a little less. Towards the top of the phrase here, use more of your forearm in moving this way. Yeah. So if you were to sing, you would not sing those four notes exactly the same. Similarly, make an inflection with your sound when you play the cello. When I play the second phrase here, the top is more. There's a forte here, and I like to also hear the shift going back to the D. If I were to play it slow, we don't want that, but when you play it in tempo, this is the idea. This melody comes back twice, and when you play it for the very last time at the moderato, tempo 1, towards the end, the last key change, we have pianissimo. You can experiment with playing non-vibrato or with very little vibrato. Here. What's important to keep in mind is that this last reiteration of this melody is at the end of a life. It's somebody who's looking back, somebody old maybe. It's nostalgic. It has that melancholy that we didn't yet have in the beginning. Another difficult aspect in this piece is the tempo changes. There are many, and you have to internalize them so that you know the right tempo just by looking at your part. There's a few spots where you should be sure you count out the beats for yourself or out loud. For example, here before the andante moderato that I just played. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And obviously here we have the beat is divided into 4 parts and then to 3 parts. It doesn't have to be metronomic, but you do have to figure it out in order to be free. Once you figure it out, you can play with it a little bit. You can be a little more free. Also in the allegretto scherzando, you need to be very precise. One. I would practice just with a 16th note. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, etc. In the allegro, the following movement, we again have a tricky rhythm. So this is in 6/8, so I subdivided until I really understand it inside, and then only then you can be free. Or as a final note, I wanted to add that there are little courtesies that go a long way when rehearsing, and we are all guilty of not following them. One is be on time. Page turns should be figured out ahead of rehearsals in order not to waste your colleagues' time. Slurs should be figured out also, but written lightly in pencil because they can be changed to match your colleagues. Obvious, but still, we make mistakes. Thanks for watching. If you're in LA on October 15th, I'm playing this at the Broad stage with 2 fantastic colleagues. I will add the links below. I hope to see you there. Thank you. Bye.